The Krillak ships hung in the darkness beyond the moon, their black hulls impossible to see against the void of space. Only advanced tracking systems could detect them at all. They had been watching Earth for 23 days, collecting data on human defenses, communication patterns, and military capabilities. In the underground command center beneath Seoul, Commander Park hadn't slept properly in days. Dark circles framed her eyes as she studied the latest satellite images. The alien vessels remained motionless, silent observers that responded to no messages. "This is the 5th attempt at contact," she said, gesturing at the screen where the unanswered transmission data scrolled past. Still nothing. Colonel Kim entered with fresh coffee and new reports. He placed a tablet in front of Park showing energy readings from the alien ships. "Their power output increased by 12% in the last hour," he said. "Maybe they don't understand our language patterns." Park took a sip of coffee and shook her head firmly. "No, they understand perfectly. Their ships have been analyzing our global communications. They're choosing not to answer." "Why?" asked Kim. "Because they don't see us as equals," Park replied. "They don't negotiate with animals." The world waited 3 more tense days. Military forces around the globe remained on high alert. Then, without warning, a smaller ship broke from the alien fleet and descended toward Earth. Global defense systems tracked its path, but no one fired. This might be first contact, or the start of a war. The alien vessel landed on a small uninhabited island in the Pacific, declared neutral ground by emergency United Nations agreement. World leaders gathered quickly, arriving by helicopter and naval vessels. Military ships formed a protective ring around the island, though everyone knew they stood little chance if the aliens attacked. President Lee of South Korea arrived with a small security detail. She wore a simple blue suit, her gray hair pulled back in a practical bun. As Earth's chosen representative, selected for her diplomatic experience, she felt the weight of humanity's future on her shoulders. The alien ship opened, revealing a being unlike anything humans had seen before. Admiral Dorn, as he called himself in perfect English, stood over 8 feet tall. His body was covered in scales that shifted color like oil on water. 4 arms moved with unsettling grace as he approached the human delegation. "Your technology is primitive," were his first words, spoken without greeting or introduction. "Your defenses are inadequate. Your societies are divided and inefficient." The assembled leaders remained silent, letting President Lee speak as planned. "We welcome you to Earth," she said, her voice calm and measured. "We hope to establish peaceful relations between our worlds." Admiral Dorn made a sound like metal scraping against stone, perhaps laughter. "Peace is for equals," he said. "Your species shows potential as workers. Your physical forms are adaptable. Your minds can be trained. Submit now to the Krillak's empire, and we will be merciful. Resistance will result in unnecessary suffering." Murmurs broke out among the world leaders. Some looked afraid, others angry. President Lee raised her hand for silence. "And if we refuse?" she asked. "Then we will take what we want by force," Dorn replied. "Your planet has resources we require. Your people will serve one way or another." President Lee stood taller, her voice firm, as she delivered humanity's answer. "Earth does not surrender. We may be less advanced, but we are not slaves. We request that you leave our system in peace." Admiral Dorn's mouthparts clicked rapidly. His scales flashed bright red before settling back to their iridescent state. "Then Earth will burn," he said simply. "You have made your choice." He turned and walked back to his ship without another word. The world leaders were evacuated from the island immediately, emergency protocols activated worldwide. Within hours, the alien vessel had rejoined the main fleet. The first attacks came at dawn the next day. 3 cities were hit simultaneously: Seoul, Tokyo, and San Francisco. The strikes were precise, targeting military installations and defense systems. The aliens used energy weapons that cut through reinforced concrete like paper, but notably avoided civilian centers. Commander Park watched from the command bunker as reports came in from around the globe. Seoul's main airbase was destroyed in seconds. Naval installations along the Pacific coast were hit next. "They're showing us what they can do," she told Colonel Kim as they monitored the damage reports. "This is just a demonstration. Why not just destroy everything?" "They clearly have the power," Kim asked, his face pale as he watched footage of the precision strikes. "Because they want workers, not a wasteland," Park replied. "They're trying to frighten us into surrender." President Lee addressed the world that evening from a secure location. Her message was broadcast in all languages. Today, Earth faced its first attack from an alien force. The Krillaks have shown their intentions and their power. But they have also shown us something else. They want our planet intact and our people alive to serve them. This tells us they have weaknesses. They need us for some reason. And what they need, we can use against them. She paused, her expression resolute. "We will not surrender. We will not serve. Humanity has faced threats before, and we have always survived. We will stand together now, all nations as one people. The Krillaks believe us weak and divided. We will show them how wrong they are." As night fell, the alien ships remained in orbit, preparing their next move. But on Earth, something was happening that the Krillaks had not anticipated. Humanity was uniting, sharing information, resources, and technology at unprecedented speed. And in a secret facility beneath the Yellow Sea, scientists were already studying debris from the attacks, looking for any weakness they could find. 3 weeks after the first attacks, humanity found its first real hope. It came from an unexpected source: a downed Krillak scout ship that had crashed in the mountains near Busan. The recovery team had worked quickly under cover of darkness. They moved the wreckage piece by piece to the underground research facility beneath the Yellow Sea. This secret base, built years ago for defense research, had now become the center of Earth's resistance. Dr. Jumta hadn't left the facility in 15 days. His small office was filled with empty coffee cups and food wrappers. He had barely slept, running test after test on the alien technology. "It has to have a weakness," he muttered to himself as he studied the data on his screen. "Everything has a weakness." The door opened, and Major Han entered. She carried fresh coffee and a folder of new test results. "Any progress?" she asked, setting the coffee beside him. Dr. Todd looked up with bloodshot eyes, but a hint of excitement. "Maybe. Come look at this." He pulled up a series of energy readings on his screen. The numbers and patterns meant nothing to Major Han, but she could tell by his expression that he had found something important. "Look at these energy readings," he said, his fingers moving rapidly across his keyboard to highlight specific patterns. "Their fuel source is incredibly efficient, but also unstable under certain conditions." Han leaned closer, trying to understand. "Unstable how?" Dr. Ta pointed to a particular set of readings. "The molecular structure of their fuel can be disrupted with the right frequency. It would create a cascade effect, basically turning their own power source into a bomb." "You're saying we could make their ships explode with just sound waves?" Major Han asked, hardly daring to believe it. "Not exactly sound waves, more like targeted energy pulses," Dr. Todd explained. "But yes, in theory, we could trigger chain reactions in their fuel cells. The more fuel, the bigger the explosion." Han straightened up, her mind racing with possibilities. "I need to report this to command immediately. How soon can you develop something we can use?" "I'll need help," Dr. Ta said, "and more equipment." Within days, the underground facility transformed. 50 of Earth's top scientists arrived from around the world. They worked in shifts, testing theories and building prototypes. Professor Song, an expert in quantum physics, joined Dr. Tae as project co-lead. Their work was painfully slow at first. Each test required precise calculations, and even small errors could set them back days. The pressure was immense. Above ground, Krillak's forces had begun landing on Earth, establishing bases in remote locations. We need to hurry, Major Han reminded them during one late-night briefing. Intelligence reports they're preparing for full-scale occupation. Professor Song nodded gravely. We've made progress. Show her, Dr. Ta. Dr. Ta led them to a testing chamber where a small piece of Krillak's technology, a power cell recovered from the wreckage, sat inside a reinforced glass box. Watch, he said, activating a device the size of a smartphone. The power cell began to glow, first blue, then white-hot. Suddenly it burst into flames, melting the metal around it before the fire suppression system activated. It works, Major Han whispered. On small cells, yes, Professor Song cautioned. But we need something stronger for their ships, and a way to deliver it. They worked day and night for 2 more weeks. Scientists collapsed from exhaustion only to wake up and continue. Engineers built and rebuilt delivery systems. Military experts provided tactical input. Finally, Dr. Ta and Professor Song called for a demonstration. In a larger testing chamber, they displayed their creation, a device small enough to fit in a briefcase. This emits precisely calibrated energy pulses designed to destabilize Krillak's fuel, Professor Song explained to the military observers. It triggers a chain reaction that converts their power source into an explosive. Range? Asked General Kang, who had flown in for the demonstration. Approximately 200 meters at current power, Dr. Tai answered. But the effect spreads. If one fuel cell destabilizes near others, they'll go too. We need a larger test, General Kang decided. Something that proves this will work against an actual ship. Major Han stepped forward. We have a captured Krillak shuttle at Site B small craft, minimal crew, secured during their landing attempt near Jeju Island. The general nodded slowly. Prepare for a field test. If this works, we have a chance, Major Han finished for him. 2 days later, at a remote desert testing site, they prepared for the demonstration. The captured Krillak shuttle sat alone in the center of a wide empty space. All human personnel had retreated to a safe distance, watching through cameras and sensors. In a bunker 5 kilometers away, Dr. Ta, Professor Song, Major Han, and General Kang watched the monitors. The device had been positioned 150 meters from the shuttle and would be activated remotely. Operation Prometheus is ready for testing, Professor Song reported, her finger hovering over the activation button. Dr. Ta looked nervous. If this works, we've found our weapon. If not, it will work, Major Han said with more confidence than she felt. General Kang nodded. Proceed. Professor Song pressed the button. For a few seconds, nothing happened. The monitors showed no change in the shuttle. Did it? General Kang began. Suddenly, the shuttle began to glow from within. Light poured from its seams. The energy readings spiked dramatically on the monitoring equipment. It's working, Dr. Ta whispered. The shuttle's hull began to warp and bubble. Then, with a flash that temporarily blinded the cameras, it exploded. The shockwave reached the bunker seconds later, making the reinforced walls tremble. When the dust cleared, nothing remained of the shuttle but a smoking crater and scattered debris. The room was silent for a long moment. Then Major Han spoke. We have our advantage, she said. Now we need a plan to use it. The world leaders gathered in an emergency session beneath the mountains of Switzerland. This bunker, originally built for nuclear war, now housed the newly formed United Defense Council. Representatives from every nation sat around a large circular table. Screens on the walls showed real-time updates of Krillak's positions and Earth defenses. General Hyun stood at the center. A decorated veteran with 30 years of military experience, she had been unanimously selected to lead Earth's military response. Her face showed the strain of sleepless nights, but her eyes remained sharp and focused. Operation Prometheus was successful, she announced. The destabilization device worked even better than expected. Murmurs spread through the room. President Lee leaned forward. And you're certain this technology can be deployed against their fleet? Yes, General Hyun confirmed. Our scientists are already building more devices with increased range, but I believe we should use this advantage strategically. What do you suggest? Asked the Russian representative. General Hyun's plan was bold. Instead of immediately attacking the Krillak ships, she proposed sending them a message, a demonstration, and an ultimatum. The debate lasted hours, but eventually all agreed. It was time to show the Krillaks that humanity would not be conquered easily. Technicians worked through the night, preparing the transmission. They would hijack the Krillaks' own communication frequencies, ensuring their message reached not just Admiral Dorn, but all Krillak ships simultaneously. At dawn, they were ready. In the command center, General Hyun stood before the camera. Behind her, world leaders gathered in a show of unity. The technicians counted down silently with their fingers. 3, 2, 1. This is General Hyun of Earth's United Defense Council. She began, her voice steady and authoritative. We have studied your technology, Admiral Dorn. We understand your vulnerabilities. On the Krillak's command ship, Admiral Dorn was discussing invasion plans when every screen suddenly showed the human general. His 4 arms tensed in surprise as the unauthorized transmission overrode their systems. The screen split to show a familiar sight, one of their own shuttles in what appeared to be a desert. A small device sat nearby, unremarkable and seemingly harmless. As they watched, it activated with a soft blue glow. Within seconds, the shuttle began to change. Its hull glowed white-hot, metal warping and bubbling. Then came the explosion, violent enough to make the camera shake wildly before stabilizing. Where the shuttle had been, only a smoking crater remained. General Hyun continued, her eyes locked on the camera. Your fuel sources are weapons we can turn against you. Withdraw completely, or we'll ignite your worlds. This is not negotiation. This is humanity's ultimatum. The transmission ended abruptly. On the Krillak's command ship, silence fell. Admiral Dorn remained motionless for several seconds. Then, with a roar of rage, he crushed the communication device in one of his 4 hands. Fragments of metal and crystal scattered across the command deck. Impossible, he snarled, scales flashing angry red. They are primitive mammals. This must have been a planted explosive, some trick to frighten us. The science officer, a smaller Krillak with specialized sensory organs, stepped forward cautiously. Admiral, I have analyzed the explosion. The energy signature matches molecular destabilization of our quantum fuel. The wavelength patterns are clear. You suggest these humans have discovered this weakness in mere weeks. Admiral Dorn's voice was dangerous, low. I suggest we should consider their threat seriously. The science officer replied. The technology is basic but effective, if they can trigger one such reaction. They cannot reach our homeworld. Dorn dismissed with a wave of his upper arms. They have no interstellar capabilities. Their ships would be detected and destroyed long before reaching Krillak space. The military's second-in-command, Commander Frex, spoke up. Perhaps we should delay the main invasion force until we can develop countermeasures. Admiral Dorn turned slowly, his height allowing him to look down at Frex. Are you suggesting retreat? Before these primitives. Not retreat. Tactical reassessment. Frex clarified quickly. If they can destabilize our fuel, then we will strike before they can deploy their weapons widely. Dorn interrupted. Accelerate the invasion. Launch all ground forces immediately. We will take their command centers before they can organize. On Earth, the response was not what they had hoped for. Rather than retreat, the Krillaks began landing troops in greater numbers. Dropships descended on strategic locations worldwide. In the Swiss bunker, General Hyun received the reports with a grim expression. They're escalating instead of withdrawing. Did we miscalculate? President Lee asked quietly. No, General Hyun replied. This is actually what we expected might happen. Admiral Dorn is proud. He doesn't believe we could truly threaten his species. So what now? Asked the British representative. Our ultimatum failed. General Hyun shook her head. It didn't fail. It confirmed something important. They know we found their weakness, and they're afraid. That's why they're accelerating their plans. They want to end this before we can fully exploit that weakness. She turned to the screens showing Krillak's fleet movements. Their main force was still in orbit, with only a portion of their ships deploying ground troops. We need to move to the next phase, General Hun said. We've shown them we can destroy their ships one by one. Now we need to convince them we can threaten their entire species. How? Several voices asked at once. By taking the fight to them, she answered. Dr. Tai and Professor Song have been working on something that could change everything. A way to transmit the destabilization effect through the Krillak's own communication network. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. You mean we could trigger reactions in their ships without being physically near them? President Lee asked slowly. General Hun nodded. Potentially. And not just their ships. Their bases, their fuel depots, their homeworld, someone whispered. Yes, General Hun confirmed. If it works, we could threaten the entire Krillak's empire from right here on Earth. But we need time to perfect it. And we need access to one of their main communication relays. President Lee stood, her decision made. Then we'll buy you that time. While they focus on ground invasion, our real plan moves forward. As the meeting continued, Admiral Dorn watched Earth from his command ship, certain of victory. He had no way of knowing that humanity's ultimatum was just the beginning, not an empty threat, but the first move in a desperate gamble to save their world. The war room was tense with exhausted faces. 2 months of fighting had left Earth battered but defiant. Humanity had scored small victories with the destabilization devices, but the Krillaks still held orbital superiority and were establishing ground bases worldwide. Dr. Ta stood before the holographic display, his thin frame more gaunt than ever. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, but determination kept him standing. The individual devices work well for close-range targets, he explained, pointing to footage of a Krillak's landing craft exploding mid-descent. But we can't win a war of attrition. They have too many ships, and we can't get close enough to their main fleet. General Hun nodded grimly. So what's your solution? Dr. Tai tapped his tablet, changing the display to show a complex network of lines connecting points throughout the solar system. We need a delivery system, he explained to the assembled military leaders. Something that can transmit the destabilization wave through their own communication network. Captain Min, a communications specialist with cropped hair and sharp eyes, stepped forward. She had spent weeks analyzing Krillak's transmission patterns. Their ships transmit on quantum frequencies, she said. These aren't like our radio waves. They're instantaneous, connected regardless of distance. She pointed to a blinking dot near Jupiter. If we can access one of their relay stations, we could potentially send the signal everywhere at once. Everywhere? Asked the general. You mean all their ships in our system? All their ships, period, Captain Min clarified. Their entire network is connected. That's their strength, and potentially their weakness. Murmurs spread through the room as the implications became clear. Professor Song spoke up. In theory, we could send a destabilization pulse through their entire communication system. Every Krillak ship, base, and facility connected to the network would be affected, including their homeworld. General Hun asked quietly. Dr. Ta nodded. If their main planetary bases used the same fuel technology, yes. The room fell silent. This wasn't just a defensive measure anymore. It was potentially a weapon of mass destruction. President Lee, who had been listening silently, finally spoke. What would we need to do this? The plan took shape over the next days. It was desperate, perhaps impossible. A modified stealth vessel would need to reach the nearest Krillak's relay station positioned near Jupiter. The ship would have to approach undetected, dock with the station, and upload the destabilization signal directly into the quantum network. The Krillaks will detect any conventional engine signature, Captain Min explained during the planning session. We've modified our newest stealth vessel with technology reverse engineered from their scout ship. It might get close enough. Even if it does, another officer pointed out, docking with their station would alert them immediately. The crew would have minutes at most before Krillak's forces responded. So it's a one-way trip, Colonel Jin said. He had been standing quietly at the back of the room. A decorated veteran of previous Earth conflicts, he understood suicide missions. No one contradicted him. 3 days later, they had assembled a volunteer crew. The mission had been named Operation Firestarter. Colonel Jin would command, with Captain Min handling communications. 5 other specialists would join them, each expert in their field, each knowing they likely wouldn't return. Dr. Todd worked around the clock, modifying his device for the mission. I've increased the power by nearly 300%, he explained to Colonel Jin as they inspected the final version. It's powerful enough to cascade through their entire network. Jin nodded, studying the unassuming metal box that might save humanity. Will it work? In theory, Dr. Tai admitted. We've never tested it at this scale. That's good enough for me, Jin replied. The stealth vessel, renamed Prometheus, was prepared in a hidden facility beneath the Pacific Ocean. Earth's remaining resources had been poured into its construction. The hull was coated with materials that absorbed both light and scanning beams. Its engines were modified to mask their thermal signature. The interior was cramped, designed for efficiency rather than comfort. The crew trained together for 2 weeks, running simulations day and night. They needed to perfect every movement, anticipate every problem. There would be no second chances. On the day of launch, they gathered in the submarine bay. The Prometheus waited, sleek and dark against the water. Family goodbyes had been said earlier, private moments for those who would likely never return. President Lee arrived to address them one final time. She looked at each crew member, committing their faces to memory. You 7 carry humanity's future with you, she said, her voice strong despite the weight of her words. What we ask of you is beyond duty, beyond courage. The history of our species has come to this moment. She stepped forward, shaking each person's hand. The Krillaks believe us weak. They believe us unworthy of freedom. Show them humanity's strength. Show them our defiance. Colonel Jin stepped forward. We won't fail. President Lee nodded. May your courage light our path forward. The launch took place under cover of darkness. The Prometheus slipped beneath the waves first, then rose to the surface miles offshore, as Earth's forces launched a diversionary attack against Krillak's positions in North America. The stealth vessel ignited its engines and shot toward the stars. On the bridge, Colonel Jin watched Earth shrink behind them. Captain Min worked at her station, monitoring for any sign they'd been detected. Stealth systems holding, she reported. No pursuit signatures. Jin nodded, his eyes on the course ahead. Jupiter was a month away at their best speed. A month of hoping they wouldn't be discovered. A month for the 7 of them to prepare for their final mission. Engage full propulsion, he ordered. Let's bring this fight to them. As the Prometheus accelerated toward Jupiter, Earth continued its desperate battle below. The mission was underway. Humanity's last, best hope had begun its journey to the stars. After 28 days of travel, the Prometheus finally reached Jupiter's orbit. The massive gas giant filled their viewports, swirling clouds of amber and cream against the blackness of space. And there, hanging against this backdrop, was their target. The Krillak's relay station resembled a giant metal spider, its central hub surrounded by extending arms that captured and amplified quantum signals. It was much larger than they had expected, nearly 2 kilometers across. No wonder their communications are so efficient, Captain Min said quietly. That thing could relay signals across entire star systems. Colonel Jin studied the station through the ship's sensors. Any signs they've detected us? None so far, Min reported. Stealth systems still holding. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, preparing for their approach. Each person knew their role perfectly after weeks of drills. Dr. Tai ran final checks on the destabilization device, his hand steady despite the stakes. Remember, Jin addressed his crew. We need to get within 50 meters of the central hub. Any farther, and the signal might not upload correctly. Engineer Yoon looked up from his console. Colonel, their defense systems will activate the moment we get that close. We'll have seconds at most. Then we make those seconds count, Jin replied simply. The Prometheus began its final approach, engines running at minimal power. They glided toward the station, using Jupiter's magnetic field to partially mask their signature. The distance counter ticked down slowly. 1,000 meters, 500 meters, 200 meters. We're almost in position, Captain Min reported. Preparing transmission systems. 100 meters, 75 meters. Suddenly, alarm lights flashed across the bridge. Lieutenant Sue's hands flew across her tactical console. Weapons locked from the station, she reported, her voice tight but controlled. They've spotted us. A beam of energy shot from the station, missing the Prometheus by meters. The station was fully alert now, its defensive systems activating. Evasive maneuvers, Jin ordered. Get us close enough to transmit. Captain Min fought with the controls, sending the ship into an unpredictable pattern. Another energy beam grazed their hull, and the ship rocked violently. Panels exploded in showers of sparks. We're losing power, Engineer Yoon shouted over the alarms. Main engines down, auxiliary power at 40% and falling. Jin made a split-second decision. Redirect all remaining power to forward thrusters and the transmission system. Dr. Tai worked frantically at the transmission console, the destabilization device now connected directly to the ship's communication array. I only need 30 seconds to upload the destabilization sequence. Colonel Jin met the doctor's eyes. You'll have it. Taking manual control, Jin directed their damaged ship on a collision course with the relay. The Prometheus accelerated toward the central hub, its remaining power focused on this final push. Energy beams lanced out from the station, striking the ship repeatedly. System after system failed. The bridge filled with smoke as circuits overloaded. 20 meters, Captain Min called out. We're in range. Initiating upload, Dr. Tai announced, activating the device. The effect began immediately. The destabilization wave surged from the Prometheus, connecting with the relay station's quantum network. The signal propagated outward, faster than light itself, carried through the Krillex's own communication system, throughout the Krillex fleet approaching Earth, and at bases across their territory. The effect was simultaneous. Fuel cells began to overheat. Emergency systems activated too late. On the Krillex command ship, Admiral Dorn stood on the bridge, preparing for the final assault on Earth. Victory seemed certain, until warning alarms blared across the ship. Admiral, his science officer reported with panic, fuel systems are destabilizing across the fleet. The reaction is spreading through the quantum network. Admiral Dorn watched in horror as ships in his fleet began to explode, one after another. Smaller vessels went first, their hulls rupturing in brilliant flashes of light. Then the larger ships began to fail. Shut down the quantum network, he ordered. It's too late, the science officer replied. The destabilization wave has already penetrated our systems. His command ship shuddered as secondary systems began to fail. Crew members rushed to escape pods. Through the static of the dying communication network came one final message from Earth. This is General Hyun of Earth's United Defense Council. This was just a demonstration. Return, and we'll finish what we started. The choice is yours. Near Jupiter, the Krillex relay station erupted in a massive explosion, briefly outshining the giant planet beside it. The Prometheus, already crippled, was consumed in the blast. Its mission complete, its crew's sacrifice sealed. One by one, the remaining Krillex ships retreated into deep space, abandoning their invasion plans. Those too damaged to flee sent surrender signals. Within hours, Earth's skies were clear of alien vessels for the first time in months. As news spread across the planet, celebrations broke out everywhere. People who had been fighting for their lives now danced in streets, embraced strangers, and looked to the stars with new confidence. Humanity had secured not just survival, but a reputation that would keep them safe in a universe they now knew was filled with threats. 3 months later, in a ceremony attended by leaders from every nation, President Lee unveiled a monument to the Prometheus crew. 7 statues of polished stone stood in a circle, facing outward as if protecting the Earth model at their center. Each bore the likeness of a crew member, their names engraved below. Colonel Jin, Captain Min, Lieutenant Su, Engineer Yoon, Dr. Huan, Specialist Kang, Communications Officer Bai. President Lee placed her hand on the central plaque as she addressed the crowd. These 7 brave souls gave everything for our future. They knew they would not return, yet they went willingly. Their courage saved not just our lives, but our freedom. She unveiled the simple inscription at the base of the monument, reading it aloud. They ignited the stars to protect their home. In the years that followed, humanity rebuilt and expanded. The recovered Krillax technology accelerated Earth's development by centuries. Space exploration flourished as new ships were built using the alien designs. United as never before, humans began to reach outward to the stars. And somewhere in the vastness of space, the surviving Krillax told stories of the small blue planet that had defeated their greatest fleet. They spoke with fear and respect of the humans who had turned the stars themselves into weapons. The species that had dared to say, "Threaten us, and we'll ignite your worlds." The end.